Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Nations race at Brands Hatch in the Group 4 cars. This was basically a single make race. I think everyone was in the same car. The Megane was very much the OP car in qualifying. Managed an okay lap, it wasn't particularly amazing. This was the first slot of the day, starting in P2 with quite a solid lap, 27.0 I think it was. Could have been better, it wasn't the best lap, but still managed to put it on P2, so in a good position. Problem with this lobby, there was only 14 drivers in the race. 6 drivers managed to get disconnected somehow. Gran Turismo just again had a major server issue and we lost 6 of the drivers. However, that now on the current new system does not affect the points. So some very fast drivers still in this lobby. We had Fire, Josetti, Devil in front of us, WDP also just behind us. This was going to be a good race, and I have to say this race really does highlight that you can still have clean races on the current penalty system if you have respectful drivers around you. If you know that you can respect these drivers, then you can have some really good racing. You can probably have better racing now than what you could in the past if you've got respectful drivers around you, because you can actually race now. You can go for moves, you can have a little bit of rubbing and you won't get instant penalties, so you can actually drive a little bit more how you would in real life, as long as you've got the respect there for the people. But starting this race, you can see this was a massive fuel saver. Now the problem we've got here is P1 Devil is really saving. He's going for the fuel saving way. You can tell straight away. Don't blame him at all, because if you're starting from P1, there is no point going straight away aggressive. Now personally, I would have tried to go quite aggressive to spread the field out and try and break the slipstream from P2 straight away. However, he's gone straight into fuel saving, so I'm going to short shift behind him for a little bit and just try and save some fuel. You can see going into mixture 3, you probably could have gone into higher mixtures through here, maybe for mixture 4, etc. But I just wanted to make sure that we didn't drop too far back and risk losing the P2 position that we're in at the moment, because you do run the risk of becoming too engaged into fuel saving. I think a lot of drivers do it, but this race was actually faster driving it flat out. However, it's nearly impossible to break the slipstream at the moment on this game. If you've got fast drivers behind you, it is basically impossible to break 1.5 second gap in a car like the Megane at Brands Hatch. And that is quite frustrating. They do need to take a look at this slipstream. I'm sure they are aware of it. I'm sure they're going to be maybe looking at something they can do to reduce it at certain ranges, because at the moment there is no real motivation to try and break the slipstream. Although I was going to give it a go if I had the opportunity, because to be brutally honest, at the start of this race, you can see we're doing a lot of short shift and a lot of fuel saving, and I started getting a little bit bored after 2 laps, if I'm honest. After a few laps I started to feel a little bit like this race is just getting a little bit it just felt like a procession, just running behind other cars. It was like a train. No one was really willing to go for a move, because you don't want to, there's no point. You might as well just make it a battle of fuel saving really in the first stint. You can see into mixture 2, lifting, coasting, doing a lot of short shifting, and that is basically what this race is about. You can have a look at the track map. We're on to the second lap and just look at the line of cars. There is no one yet that has lost the slipstream. That is how insane this slipstream is. Normally someone would have made a mistake and lost a little bit of time, and then the car in front would have built up a bit of a gap. But at the moment on this current system, you've got a situation where everyone is really closely packed. So this is going to all lead up to hopefully a better race at the end of this race, because I decided that after 2 laps I was going to, I think it was like the 3rd lap, I'm not going to sit around anymore. It was getting a little bit too boring just short shifting. The pace was actually really slow. We're actually going to skip past in a minute. You can see coming to the end of lap 2, we're going to skip ahead a whole lap, because I think on the end of lap 3, well, pretty much halfway through lap 3, I decided I'm going to start pushing. You can see a lot closer to Devil now. Started to push him, maybe making him push his fuel a little bit more. I wanted to spread this field out. You can see the lap times, 28. Really, you should have been in 27s, like comfortably in 27s, pushing quite aggressively. At this stage, the race pace is very slow. You can see way off pace at the moment, not really anywhere near the pace that we could be doing. So you can see myself now putting a lot of pressure on Devil. I decided that I was going to go aggressive. Now Devil had a problem with his throttle pedal during this race. I don't think it was, we checked on the replay, it wasn't really causing him an issue at this point. I think it kicked in just around about the time when we pitted. You're going to see it as an issue, I think. But you can see now, decided to really push now and see if we could go for a move. So one mixture, revved it out, and using the slipstream, can we go for an overtake? Now one advantage of doing this, if we can get a move done on Devil, is as we go to the right to get him to go defensive, then down to the left, get around the outside and then undercut back on the inside and try and go for the move on the inside. You can see, and that's really worked out quite nicely there. No real defense that he could do. We had much more speed coming off the X6. He's obviously doing fuel saving. And now we decided to push 100%. And like I say, the benefit of trying to do this was you're going to spread the field out. At the moment, with the way it was looking, was one little error or one little thing, you know, a little bit of fuel difference between cars, and you could end up way down the grid. And that's not one thing I wanted to do, was be down in P10 after the pit stop phase. So I decided to push this out a bit and be really aggressive. You can see building the gap up to try and break the slipstream. This is going to really highlight the current issue with the slipstream system. No matter, you can see I'm driving really aggressive. We've got the gap up quite a bit, and you can see what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give the slipstream to WDP at this point, to try and make it so that, and Fire, I think, just to try and make sure that they battle a bit to see if I can break the slipstream. So you can see the gap is up 1 second. However, as soon as we get to acceleration and they're back in the slipstream, there's not much we can really do about it. They're just going to start gaining. It's a case of, it's just going to keep happening. I really shouldn't have done this probably, but I really wanted to give it a go. I felt there was nothing to lose. Let's try and push. You can see him really aggressive, trying to move over to the left hand side of the track just to break the slipstream. Maximum on the throttle out of there, flooring it as hard as I can, but then as soon as we're on the straight, you just watch the delta just come back down, and it's quite depressing to see that. I'm really hoping that they do something with the slipstream. I really think that anything over 1 second in terms of the slipstream should be such a minimal gain, and I think anything between half a second and 1 second shouldn't be that strong either. I think they need to make some sort of like dynamic system with the slipstream where it depends on different cars, etc., and it varies in strength at different ranges, because at the moment from 1.4 seconds back you gain half a second on a straight easily, even in Group 4, and it just seems a little bit too much in my personal opinion. But you can see we're still giving it a go, trying to break that slipstream. We keep getting it to about 1.1. We got it to 1.2 at one stage, but then we got the straight and he's just going to catch back up. You can see 1.1, and then you've got the straight acceleration zone. He's going to start catching back up on the straight as we go over the line. You can see there into the 27 straight away as soon as we started pushing. That shows you just how slow the pace was on that first stint. It was really off pace. Again, we're still trying to break that slipstream, but I think we started to realise at this point it's just not going to happen. We keep getting it to 1.2, and then it's just going to keep coming back as soon as we get on the acceleration zones and on the straight. So I think at this point you'll see me in a minute just give up pretty much. I could see I was trying my hardest, did everything we could to break the slipstream, but the disadvantage what we've done now is we've used quite a bit of fuel up, because for over two laps I've been giving this pretty much maximum attack, and you can see the cars behind have been able to sit in that slipstream for a while. Now Devil obviously was doing a lot of fuel saving in the first stint, and now he's carried on that fuel saving, but the cars behind Devil will have been able to do probably a lot more fuel saving than what I've been able to do. So we decided to go back into fuel mixture 3 and go back into that fuel saving. We gave it a go. It was worth a shot. Clearly it was not going to work. All that was happening was I was pushing, using up fuel, and it was just giving everyone else the advantage in the fuel. So I decided to go back into the fuel saving mode. And you can see the one benefit was we did slightly spread out the field a little bit. It's still very compact, but there is a few gaps developed within that the train of cars, so it might help us out when it comes to pitting. We'll see. We're going to go for an early pit stop, I decided anyway, because we're out at the front. I thought at least if we pit early, so coming up to the end of lap 7, I decided let's get this pit stop done now. We'll pit early, put a bit more fuel, try and go aggressive with the fuel. However, we see behind Fire and Josetti decide to go for the same strategy. Pitting early, they've got a little bit more fuel than me, but not a massive amount. They've got a couple of percent more. So let's have a little look at the percentages as we come out the pits, as we drive out the pits. You see, I put in, I think it's 80%, Josetti 81%, and Fire 79%. So Fire actually has the lowest amount of fuel, but that has given him the jump in front of me, and Josetti behind me with the most amount of fuel. So we've got a really, this is going to be an interesting situation. You've got the driver at the front with the lowest fuel, myself with the middle fuel, and the one with the most fuel at the back. So this could be really entertaining. But like I say, when you've got drivers with the respect that we all have for each other, I think everyone in this group here has a lot of respect. I massively respect all these drivers around me, so it's going to be a really close race all the way to the end with the strength of this slipstream especially. And it's just going to be about, can we defend from Josetti while trying to put some pressure on Fire as well. It's a difficult situation. Now the benefit is we've got that slipstream to help us defend against Josetti if he goes for a move. So if he pulls out a slipstream and we're in Fire slipstream, it's going to be nearly impossible for him to be able to go for a move. He's going to have to do it with a very late lunge if he's going to be able to go for it, but it's not the easiest track to overtake on in general, Brands Hatch. And for this lap, on the outlap from the pits, I was pretty focused on just keeping it clean. I didn't really want to battle at this stage because on your outlap, when you've just pitted early, if we start battling with each other and losing time, we possibly lose the chance to get a very good result in this race. So I think very clever, Josetti not really being overly aggressive, FIA pushing as well at this stage, which is what we needed to do, because we needed to push and then save fuel towards the end, if anything, so that we could get ourselves out of the front and try and secure a good result. You can see FIA goes over the line, pushing down the straight, and you can see we're up in a few positions there, but we've got cars that have not pitted yet. All the cars in front of us haven't pitted. Surprisingly, Devil's decided to stay out very long, and I think he actually had his throttle issue when he went in the pits. He developed a throttle issue on his pedal, so let's keep an eye out for that, as you see. However, I do think that Devil, even if he didn't get that throttle issue, I think he pitted too late. I think staying out for them laps when you've got cars behind pushing, you're just losing the track position. So from our perspective, I think we've gone for the right strategy, especially with the Megane's tyre ability. The car literally does not have any tyre wear. It's so good on tyres. It just is able to drive so fast, and you can push the tyres even around the tracks with a lot of fast corners, and the car doesn't really use up any tyre life. You can see at the moment though, using that mixture 2 whenever I can. So this is really tactical usage of the fuel system at the moment. I know that I'm a little bit behind on the fuel because FIA's pushing. FIA was very fast around this combination, one of the fastest drivers in the EU region at this combination. I remember a race a while ago, he absolutely obliterated the field, so it's going to be very difficult for myself to stay with him. So what I've got to do is through the corners use mixture 2 and 3 etc whenever I can, do a bit of short shifting on some of the straights, not over rev the car but give it some on mixture 1, just so that I can help myself defending against Josetti behind. You can see Josetti also very fast at this combination, so this is a very hard position to be in because I've got to try and stay and concentrate on FIA whilst also keeping an eye on my mirrors. You can see we're now up into P1, 2 and 3 with this group, and we've also got WDP just a bit behind there with, I think he's got slightly fresher tyres, but did he put enough fuel in? That is going to be the question. I'm not sure if he slightly under fueled during the pit stop to try and get involved with this battle at the front, so that's going to maybe cost him some time at the end of this race. But you can see at the moment all 3 drivers here pushing as hard as we can with keeping the fuel in check in a way, because we're driving aggressive but we all have to do some form of fuel savings. You'll see not overly revving out. You see what I'm doing now with the shifting is this car can go to 120 in 4th gear, so what I'm doing is I'm getting to about 112, 113 shifting up. That will save me a little bit of fuel on the straight while I'm in the slipstream to fire. As we take a look at that livery created by one of our subscribers, Ghostly, again very bright, and this is the livery that probably got me into P2 on the grid to start with. Overpowered, in your face, putting everyone else off, as we see Josetti right behind us through this section. Look how close he is there as we're trying to just maintain speed in the slipstream. That is the section where I was doing most of my fuel saving because I know that it's very difficult to get an overtake done. So what I was trying to do was drop back a little bit through that section as we take a look at that amazing replay camera. The game looks absolutely stunning on these replay cameras. Yeah, we're trying to save that fuel through the middle sector so that when we get on the straights we could just use a little bit more power out of that one mixture. And that was helping me defend at the moment. You can see just building up enough of a gap so that Josetti can't really throw it up the inside. It's a very hard track to overtake on. This corner into turn 2 was probably one of the main opportunities that you can go for a move at Brands Hatch. But you can see I'm taking a very narrow line into there, making sure that you can't go for that move. So it's a little bit slower on the exit. However, because we're in the slipstream of fire, we can afford to go for that line. After then, you're okay as we again look at another amazing camera on the game. I absolutely love that camera as well. Game looks amazing on some of these cameras at Brands Hatch as we go through to the long left-hand corner. Very important corner that, because it builds your speed up down this straight where there is an overtake opportunity. You saw myself do that to Devil, where we lined it up on the left-hand side and then did the cut back. But you can see it's pretty much impossible for Josetti to get a move done on me through this section purely because I've got the slipstream to fire. So trying now again back into that mixture 2 and short shifting, because I know this section is pretty much impossible as Fire getting really aggressive on that curb. Very lucky to possibly get away without a penalty there. He really did ride up on that curb, and lucky to get away without spinning the car as well, because that I've seen many drivers getting spun out on that curb. It's a very tricky curb if you are overly aggressive on it. But you can see Fire clearly pushing, even though he's in going to have to do some fuel saving in this race because he has less fuel than us, and myself doing that fuel saving in the middle sector and then using a bit of the power during this sector now, which is going to help my car be able to defend against Josetti behind us. This is really good racing though. You can see 3 drivers very close together. We're all within half a second, but there's not been any contact really at the moment. So Josetti gives us a little nudge there, but that was mainly on the apex where it was just a difference in speed, but no harm done. That's understandable. You can live with contact like that. It's just when someone deliberately wipes you out, obviously, which has been going on in some lobbies. But this race really highlights the better part of Gran Turismo Sport in my view. 3 drivers pushing as much as they can while saving fuel. The only problem with this race, like I say, was the slipstream, which I'm sure will get looked at in the future by Polyphony. Let's see what the next update brings, whether it's going to also bring an update with regards to the penalty system. I don't know. Hopefully it will do, so that the people that are driving a little bit too aggressively might pick up penalties. But you can see there Josetti had a little look up the inside. I could see that he had the look, but there was no way he was going to go for the move, because as soon as he goes for that, he'd lose so much speed from the slipstream. So it's quite lucky that I had the slipstream to fire at this stage. I think without that slipstream, it would have been very hard to defend. We probably could have put an effort up in defending, because there's only really 2 zones you can go for overtakes. Where on that long straight and into turn, I think turn 2 is the main area. If you get a really nice exit and entry into turn 1, you can really go for a move up that hill if you brake really late. You can even try a move around the outside if you feel you've got the grip on the left hand side, and then get the inside for the next corner. But now again, we're about to start lap 13, coming towards the last third of this race now, and it's getting still incredibly intense. You see in the mirror also WDP not too far behind. I think he's got the slipstream to Josetti, obviously pushing aggressively to try and make sure that he gets into that slipstream as well. Will that cost him towards the end though in terms of fuel? It's going to be really interesting. I could see my fuel. You can see we've got 4.7 laps left of fuel. Now that is very, very close. So we've got to judge this as close to perfection as we can. We need to get at that finishing line. The aim here in this type of situation, when you're racing with 2 other drivers who are very fast and you know that your fuel is very low, your aim is really to just try and see if you can get your fuel to basically run out dead on the finishing line. If you can get over that line, then it runs out, you've judged it to perfection. So this is going to be basically the attempt that we've got to do here, because we can't afford to let up. If we let up, we lose out to P3 anyway, and then we drop down to P3, and that, it wouldn't be a bad result. But at the moment in this lobby, I think the top points were 350 something, 358 or something like that, and for second it was 340. So if we can hold on to P2 and take 340 points in this race, that will be an incredible result going into the nations with this nation's season going reasonably well so far. So 340 points, a combination that I was actually looking for points on. I think I was going to race until we got a podium, pretty much until we got a solid at least 310, but 340 would have been more than enough in terms of taking the points. So let's see if we can hold on to this P2 all the way to the end of this race. You see Fire developing a little bit of a gap there. I was doing a little bit of fuel saving on the previous lap. Now Josetti's going to go for a move around the outside. I'm going to hold that narrow line again. A lot of grip on the inside. Very hard to make that work on the outside, but he's giving it a go. But again, just trying to get myself back into the slipstream of Fire and making sure I don't drop too far back, because if we drop over 1 second back, Josetti's going to be right behind us and he's going to possibly be able to go for a dive somewhere. But at the moment, we're sitting in that slipstream, half a second back from Fire. And again, we're just trying to judge the shifting, the fuel, everything. It's a real tactical race, this. And these are the type of races that I really enjoy on Gran Turismo. Obviously, you can have really fun races where there's a lot of overtaking going on. But when you've got a tactical battle like this, with some of the best drivers on the game, and it's so closely matched between yourselves, obviously the slipstream is giving us some help on this situation, but this is one of my stronger combinations in general. I really enjoy driving the Megane, so my pace is always fairly solid whenever we get the Megane out. It tends to do quite well, so it's such an enjoyable racing experience when you're this close. It's really immersive. You get really into the zone. You can see by the cameras I am 100% in lean mode, leaning into every corner, that immersed into the situation that we're nearly probably laying on the bed while we're racing. That's how insane the immersion gets when you're really in the zone. But you see Josetti looked like he was going to go for a move there, decided to hold the middle of the track, just make it difficult. This is going to make the exit now a little bit awkward, but I'm going to have to go defensive. You can see putting the car in the middle of the track so that I can still take an apex through here and then getting on the power as early as possible, and just about managing to get the car just ahead of Josetti there as we come through to the final now. 2.5 laps or so left in this race. You can see the fuel is looking slightly better. It's looking about where we need it to be, but it's still going to be very hit and miss whether we get to the end of this race without running out of fuel just before the finishing line, as we again jump onto the TV replay cameras. Just look at this now, 4 cars involved with this battle for the lead, and I think the good thing about this is I think the strategy that we ran definitely did pay off. Pushing, then pitting, and then pushing again. You can see that it's built up a lot of gaps between the drivers, and this has really spread the field out, so it's secured the top 4. And at the moment, top 4 would have been an okay result, but we want to at least get this P2 out of this race. You can see taking a look at Fire every now and then, trying to see if there's an opportunity to go for a move, but it's so difficult again at Brands Hatch to go for a move without obviously wiping out the driver in front. So you're going to see every now and then I just move out to the right, have a little look just to see if there's any sort of opening there, see if we can put Fire off. But Fire is not the type of driver that's going to make a mistake from a car behind through pressure. He's very one of the best drivers on the game at the moment. So we just got to keep at this now for the final 2 laps and see if we can make anything happen. If we can maintain this P2, it's 100% a good result as we go through turn 1, trying to make sure we carry the speed up the hill now. You can see managing to do that quite well. Don't really need to go too defensive there, but I'm still holding that very tight apex because I just don't want to give any invitation to Josetti behind us. If he sees a gap and he's going to go for it, it's very hard to defend if they get their car up the inside there as we push and seal through these corners. And again, you can see the fuel seems to be, and it's definitely improving. You can see now 1.7 at that point of the track shows you that we're getting it closer to being where it needs to be, and obviously that is going to happen as you go through these races. When your car gets lighter, the fuel economy gets better, so you genuinely do see that the fuel will start improving towards the end on the last few laps as we go into that mixture 2 again. I could see that we needed to use mixture 2 just to make sure. One thing I didn't want to happen was run out 100, 200 meters before the finishing line and lose out to a few drivers behind us. But at the moment, it's all looking okay. It looks like we should be able to get to the finish, although you never know in these races, as we have a massive moment there. That shows you just how hard and on the limit we are there, pushing all the way to the edge of the track. The left-hand tyre, the rear tyre, just gradually grazes the grass and we nearly lose control, but just about managed to save it. As Fire again, I think he was having to do a bit of fuel saving here for these few corners, as he didn't seem to get the acceleration out of that corner. So obviously going into higher fuel mixtures, we're going to have to go defensive here and get out the slipstream of Fire. Josetti's going to go down left hand side. He's going to try the cut back, but he gets on the curb too much. The rear starts to slide, and that gives me the ability to just sit the car back in the middle of the track and defend. And you can see trying to make Fire think that we might go for a move, but again, he's not going to fall for that. I'm not going to just throw it up from there. It would have been far too risky and probably ended up in all 3 cars getting wiped out. So this is really respectful racing, and this is what we want to see on Gran Turismo Sport. Real close driving for the lead positions, no wipeouts, just utter respect between drivers as we come through now on the last lap here. Can we do anything on this straight? This is a position that we could possibly go for a move. You see Fire weaving around, making sure that we cannot get that slipstream fully down the straight. And luckily for myself though, we're not going to have to really defend from Josetti behind us. He's very close, but you can see back into fuel mixture 2, and now we've just got a few corners that we've got to defend on from these last few corners. Can we make this stay on the track? As Fire again, another massive moment for Fire there. Obviously we've been on the tyres a little bit longer. You can see that rear left hand tyre on the telemetry is looking a little bit worn, as again Fire gets very close onto that grass there, but just manages to keep the car on the track and no issue, gets away with that as we now come through to the final corner. Will Josetti go for a move on this inside? I decided to look like I was going to defend, braked late. Is he going to be able to get up the inside? He can't get that car up the inside there, and we just stick in the slipstream of Fire and come over the line for a very well earned P2. And what a really enjoyable race. I have to say that was a really intense race. I thoroughly enjoyed that. 340 points in the bag. The overall finishing time was not that fast. I think in practice, myself and Fire, Fire did it in like 16, about 6 seconds, 7 seconds faster than that, maybe more. I did it about 5 seconds faster than that. So it does show you that the pace was very slow during that opening first 4 or 5 laps. That is what caused the slow pace, but 340 points, 100% happy with that. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of that. It does show you that you can still have clean racing on GT when you're with very respectful drivers. So thoroughly enjoyed. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, and make sure you hit that notification button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone.